And on one day alone, in the one battle here, she walked 35 miles up and down the hills. She was 51 trips that she made. She carried 386 rounds of ammunition on her back, which is about 9,000 pounds. So if you think that's almost 5 tons of ammunition on her back going up and down the mountains. And she was so heroic that they officially promoted her to the rank of sergeant at the time. But as she became more known and stuff, she eventually became staff sergeant. And they promoted her at Camp Pendleton to staff sergeant. And so she, during the Battle of Outpost Vegas, with all of this battle going in, I'm writing a book on the horse, and I've also written a script, and I'm doing everything I can with this horse because she's just such a passion of mine. And one of the gentlemen that served with her was a guy named Harold Wadley, and he was, the Cowboys and Indians back last June or July had a story on her, and Harold was featured, and that's when I met him. And he was talking about how he could not believe seeing this little mare crawling up the hillside, you know, through the firelight of all these rounds of ammunition coming in, as you can imagine. And he really thought that she would die up there because she'd make these trips by herself. And she'd go up, she'd shield Marines going up to the lines, and then she'd carry wounded down. So they strap her up with ammo, and then she'd carry the wounded down, and they'd take the wounded out and loaded her up again. And she just did this all day long. And she was wounded twice in the battle. She had 2 Purple Hearts from that battle. She was just an amazing horse. And Harold had said in this battle, the concussion waves alone were so powerful that he was bruised from head to toe. And after the battle, he slept for 2 days. He just fell asleep and slept. And he said, and at first he just shook because the waves had been so strong and pummeling against them. He said, you know, what it did to a horse, you just can't even imagine. So she survived the battle and everything, and this was in March of '53. And in July 27th of '53 was when the armistice was signed, and you know, then the guy started coming home and everything, and she was left behind there. And there were the people that loved her, Andrew Gere, who ended up writing a story in Saturday Evening Post, and I actually have the magazine here so you can see it. He was commander of the 2nd Battalion over in Korea at the time, and he fell in love with this horse. And he really tried hard to get her back to the States, and he wrote an article in the Saturday Evening Post that came out in April of '54. And when America heard about this horse, you know, it was like, you know, when is she coming to the States, you know? And at first, the Marine Corps, they wouldn't provide her with free transportation because they were saying it was some kind of publicity stunt and all this crazy nonsense, you know. And a Pacific Transport, the executive director of that, called up Andy Gere and said, I'll provide her free transport if you can get her to Japan. And you have to get her stall and everything else. So she finally was able, it took almost a year and 3 months after the signing of the peace treaty to get her to the United States.
So who took care of her during that time?
The Marines that were still over there, her platoon, everybody was still over there, and you know, they rotate in and out, and they took care of her, and everybody called her her own, and it was interesting because, you know, as things would go, you know, they would talk about, I've interviewed Marines that served with her over there at that time, and, you know, she'd venture into their tents and they'd drink beer, and even though they hadn't served with her in battle and stuff, they still took care of her as if she was one of their own. And she was just beloved, and so she was able to come to the States. They got her on the ship. She was almost washed overboard when a wave hit during a typhoon and stuff. But they got her here, and she landed, and she landed and touched soil on November 10th of 1954, and that happened to be the Marine Corps birthday. And she was guest of honor in San Francisco at the Marine Corps birthday. And the media all over, was there. And one reporter even said she had more people show up for her arrival than, Vice President Nixon did. He was there the week before, And so Ed Sullivan wanted her on his show, and he wrote an article, and